Today we'll be getting into what you really need to pack for your Walt Disney World trip and what can more than likely stay at home. Hello and welcome to the Let's Go to Disney podcast. I'm Oliver.
And I'm Lucy.
Today is Sunday, June 8th, and you're listening to episode 91, Packing for Disney, What to Bring and What to Skip. Before we get into today's main topic, here's what's going on in the parks right now. And we have a lot of news this week because Disney and Universal have been busy.
Yes, they have been.
So at last year's D23 event, we found out that a new Cars-themed area was coming to Magic Kingdom and that it would take over the existing Tom Sawyer Island, Rivers of America, and the Liberty Square Riverboat in the process. We now have an official closing date for these attractions, which is going to be July 7th, and that's less than a month from now. This means that the last day to visit Tom Sawyer Island or board the Liberty Bell will be July 6th. Disney did say that construction walls won't go up just yet and that it will not impact the new Starlight Dream the Night Away parade starting at Magic Kingdom on July 20th. On a positive note, though, Disney did announce the name of the new land. It's going to be Piston Peak National Park. So Disney said, quote, "Imagine an awe-inspiring wilderness filled with towering trees, snow-capped mountains, breathtaking waterfalls, roaring rivers, and impressive geysers." While fictional, Piston Peak is inspired by the Rocky Mountain area and the history and iconic sites of the American frontier and its national parks. So the land is going to feature a visitor lodge, Ranger HQ, I'm not too sure what that means, but it sounds cool, trails among other offerings, and this is all going to be in an environment themed to cars, right? Which makes sense. So the buildings are going to have theming reminiscent of what you would see in a national park. Think of like the Northwest. And Imagineers are actually going to position trees strategically to provide a natural barrier between the new space and the existing Frontierland and Liberty Square, right? Which is kind of in line with what Disney already does.
Always do that, yeah.
When you're in Adventureland, you can't even barely see the castle and it's literally right next to it.
So true.
They're good at that, right? And then they also showed some new concept art photos. From what we can see, you can actually spot the new e-ticket attraction, right? Which makes sense. This is going to be an off-road type vehicle, is what like the ride vehicle that's being developed is going to be. And you're going to be riding that across like rugged terrain, right? So think like geysers and, waterfalls and that kind of thing. So the queue for the ride is going to be in that visitor lodge, and it's going to feature a new character named Ranger J. Autobahn Woodlore. And he's going to give you some history on the fictional Piston Peak to give context to the attraction and kind of the land as a whole. And from what we can see, there's a lot of water in the land, okay, which is great to see because we know this was like a point of contention from a lot of guests, right, when it was first announced, us included, right? So it's nice to know that, water is still going to play a big role in this area.
Yeah, I agree completely. It'll be a great area, I think, a nice space.
Yeah, for sure.
So over at Hollywood Studios, June 7th was the official closing date of the Muppets Courtyard. The area is going to be walled off to begin work on the new Monsters, Inc. land that will replace Muppets Courtyard. And on that note, Disney shared a reel on their social this week teasing the Muppets retheme of Rock and Roller Coaster. The reel features Kermit saying that they are packing up and getting ready to set up shop at Rock and Roller Coaster in 2026. So no time of year was given, but we're going to assume that it'll be much later in the year next year, likely the fall, if not even a little bit later. Yeah,
no, for sure, because they kind of alluded to the fact that Rock and Roller Coaster is going to stay open for most of 2025.
Exactly.
So, by the time they start do their retheme, I'm going to assume like later, probably closer to Christmas, in 2026.
Yeah, I think that's realistic.
Yeah.
And then over at Epcot, GO82 is officially open. This is the new adults-only lounge that is themed to Spaceship Earth. The lounge does require advanced dining reservations and offers elevated offerings of specialty cocktails and fancy bites. Initial reactions are that this place is expensive, but quite nice, and the offerings are good. Over in Disneyland, we got some really big news as well. Last year's D23 also announced that significant changes were coming to the West Coast Resort. We knew that there was going to be a new Pandora-themed land with heavy influences from Avatar: The Way of Water, which will be unique to this coast, and it's not going to be a carbon copy of what's already found at Animal Kingdom. So that's really exciting. A completely new, basically, storyline for here.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
Disney confirmed that this new land will take over a portion of the Hollywood backlot area at Disney's California Adventure. So as a result, Monsters, Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue will close in early 2026 for good.
Yeah, womp womp.
Womp womp womp. Yep. Construction for the multi-year project is set to start in the fall of 2026. Still in Disney's California Adventure, Disney also announced that the previously teased Coco attraction will be near Paradise Gardens Park and Pixar Pier, in areas that are mostly backstage as of today. Construction for this is going to start very soon this fall, and it will start backstage. So it will have minimal impact on guest experience for the time being. And based on what we've seen so far, this is going to be a slow boat ride.
Yeah, based on what we've seen from the concept art, it's just like guests that appear to be in a boat. And
probably lots of music. It'll be probably be lots of fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
The expansion is also seeing the addition of a new parking structure and transportation hub that will be located on the east side of Disneyland Resort, which is currently where the Manchester cast member parking lot is located. This will add approximately 6,000 parking spaces, as well as shuttle and rideshare areas, additional security screening checkpoints, and a dedicated access for traffic coming off of Disney Way. It'll also feature a pedestrian bridge that will cross over Harbor Boulevard, leading to a new Esplanade entrance. This will all help the flow of guests to accommodate the additions to the resort, which will also include the 2 new attractions at Avengers Campus. And again, all of this construction is set to begin in the fall of 2026. So, wowza, there's a lot of changes coming over at Disneyland.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be
It's
wild.
very exciting. Yeah,
for sure. Like even all of, everything that's going on in Walt Disney World and Disneyland, it's so some good years coming up here for Disney.
Honestly, for us, it's going to be like a whole new area. That's why we keep going back. There's always something new.
Absolutely. And then over at Universal Orlando, single night tickets for Halloween Horror Nights are now on sale. So the spooky after hours event, runs select nights from August 29th through November 2nd for this year. So ticket prices are going to range from $82.99 to $122.99 per person. Express passes are also available, as well as RIP tours, which is just a play on words for like a VIP tour. And then Universal also releases the theming of their haunted houses one at a time. This is something they've started kind of more recently.
Yeah.
And they've released 2 of the houses so far. So the first one is going to be Five Nights at Freddy's. And then it's going to be Fallout based on like the video game and then the show that's on Prime.
Yes.
So expect more houses to be announced in the coming weeks. And the event also features, it's not just the houses, right? So there's scare zones, entertainment. Last year, the show was wild.
Epic.
And then, exclusive snacks, drinks, and merchandise, of course.
We had a blast last year, and I cannot wait to one day go back again. Hopefully in the near future, I would take my kids once they're a little bit older and can handle a good scare. I'd want them to almost be like 17 or 18 years old, just so that they understand that it's all pretend and not real and just can have fun with it.
Maybe not that old. Like Universal recommends 13.
Yes,
but
you're
I
right.
think that
teenagers at least. Yeah.
At 13 years old, like you still have to consider what's your kid like.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Like I think our son at 13 might be not
but
quite
maybe
there.
when he's 16 and she's 13, we might be all right.
Yeah, we might be able to get away with it.
But yeah, so much fun. So if you get a chance to go, definitely go.
Yeah.
I love horror. That's my favorite type of movie. And so for me, this was right up my alley.
No, for sure. And we won't be there this year because our Universal trip is just a little bit later.
Yeah. And we have our kids with us. So
no, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But your sister's going and her husband, our brother-in-law, so they're going to have a blast. I know they are. Yeah,
for sure they will. And then Universal also announced the closing for Rip Ride Rockets. So they had previously announced that this was going to close, but now we have a date, right? So August 18th of this year. It's going to be taken down to make way for a new attraction that has yet to be announced, which is too bad because our kids will never get to experience it.
But I'm not sad because that one is just too much for me.
It was pretty rough. Yeah, it was time for a change. With that said, let's get into today's main topic, which is packing for your Walt Disney World vacation. So this is a topic that we've broached here and there, but we thought it would be, beneficial just to have an episode dedicated to it. That way, if you're looking for specific packing tips leading up to your next trip, you're going to know exactly where to find those details. So we'll start off by saying that depending on how you're traveling to Disney, packing may be less of a concern when it comes to space, right? Meaning if you're driving, you can pretty much pack the car as tight as you like, right? But having said that, there are some essentials that every travel party should be bringing with them on their vacations. And, many of the things that we're going to talk about today are going to overlap, whether like you're driving or flying. These are the things that you should be considering to bring with you.
Absolutely. So we're going to kick things off with essentials that pretty much everybody should be packing. So consider these must-haves that will make your trip smoother and then less stressful overall. So first up is comfortable broken-in shoes. So there's a wide range of options you can go with, but here are some of those general guidelines that we recommend when choosing the footwear you'll be wearing in the parks. They need to be comfortable. Mm-hmm. This is an area where comfort trumps style. I'm sorry, it totally does. And if you make the mistake of prioritizing style over comfort, do so at your own apparel because you are going to be walking 20,000 steps or more in the parks in something less than ideal. You're going to feel that guaranteed. And if you can find shoes that are stylish or themed, and comfortable, well, then that's just a win-win. But we promise you, nobody's going to judge you for wearing comfy shoes to the parks. I have seen the gals in their high heels, and I just don't know how they do it. I'm thinking that maybe they're just there for the look and not for the walk.
Or maybe not for very long,
Yes.
right? Just dipping into the parks, or maybe, I don't know, they've just
a couple rides and they go
feet
home.
And exactly.
Good on them.
But we realistically, we recommend sneakers, right? With a softer sole, since the parks are pretty much all concrete, right? So you're walking on kind of a hard surface all day, right? So you're going to want something kind of on the softer side. And they should also have good support. So think of something that holds your heel in place. This is where most sandals are typically not going to be ideal. Not all, right? Some are supportive, but most aren't. And they should be breathable, right? Or moisture wicking, or have the ability to dry fast anyway, right? And it's super hot in Florida for most of the year, right? And you're likely to get some rainfall, like on some, if not all of the days you're there, even for just a little bit, right? So something that's going to dry quickly is definitely a bonus.
Absolutely. Do not wait for your trip to wear these shoes for the first time.
Agreed.
Take them for several walks while you're logging those miles to really see if they rub or bother you in any way. And if so, you may want to consider another pair or protect those areas with moleskin or something similar to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Long story short, by the time you take these bad boys into the parks, you should be very well acquainted with your shoes and comfortable for spending all day together.
Yeah, exactly. And then lastly, bring 2 pairs. Okay, so it doesn't have to be identical shoes as long as they're also comfortable and also broken in. I know this can be a little expensive, especially if you're, buying higher priced sneakers, but it saved us more times than we can count, right? So having a second pair in case one gets soaked and they need a day just to dry, right? It's nice to have a backup just in case. And as far as recommendations go, I'm partial to the Adidas DNA Ultra Boost. I always bring 2 pairs of these. I swear by these. Like I absolutely love them.
I am more of a Skechers with memory foam type of gal. Those just really work very well for me. I definitely have some sort of planters thing going on. So those I've never had issues with. And then I always bring my Birkenstocks as a backup for going for dinner or into Disney Springs or in and out of the pool. It works for me.
Yeah, agreed. Yep.
So really, brand and type and all that is super subjective. You likely have already found something that really works for you based on previous experience. Some people swear by certain brands or certain types of shoes. You know your feet best, so set yourself up for success. There's enough to worry about already on your trip without looking down at your feet.
Yeah, agreed 100%. Next up, portable phone batteries. Okay, so unless you're glued to your phone already on the daily, your phone is going to be getting a lot of action during their park days. You're going to be using it to book lighting lanes, make mobile orders, finding things like water refill stations and restrooms, right? Checking wait times for attractions, checking out at merchandise stores. Long story short, your phone is going to be busy, okay? And this is likely going to drain your battery much quicker than your typical day outside of the parks. I have a fairly new phone. It's an iPhone 16 Pro Max, and I've had it for not quite a full year, and it's the battery easily lasts all day, no problem. But when we're in the parks, I often actually have to charge it like mid-afternoon or early evening. So just to give you an idea, it's definitely good to have that battery as a backup.
Yeah, and honestly, you're going to be using your phone all the time too to take pictures and video.
Video.
It's just
for sure
crazy how much you're like, because you want to capture the moments, and everybody's got a phone now. No, I don't. I never see anybody with actual cameras, or it's very rare.
Yeah, definitely not as frequent. Why? And it's just at the end of the day,
we have our phones now. So
no, and the phone cameras are getting better and better each year, and
absolutely.
they rival, like your point and shoot.
We're constantly
cameras.
taking pictures, especially with our kids there. We just always want to capture the moment. So yeah.
Totally.
Definitely will need a recharge. So there are charging stations located all over the parks. So places that you can plug into a USB port or outlet and charge with just your regular cable. But the ability to charge on the go is such a nice thing to be able to do. We've charged on the go when sitting down to eat something, when we're waiting for a ride or waiting for a show to start, like Fantasmic or something like that. It has saved us more times than we can count, and we are huge advocates for these things. And they're fairly inexpensive. You can find really good, reliable ones on Amazon around $25 to $50. The ones that we're currently using are the brand name Anchor, and we've had them since 2022, and we've used them on every single trip, and even sometimes road trips or stuff like that. So these are definitely nice to have in general as well. And like if you're with your kids, they may be using your game, like the games on your phone. So when they're bored waiting in line, so
or using their devices, you can use those batteries for
absolutely.
that too.
We just cannot harp on this enough. It's just an important thing to have. Yeah,
no, for sure. And then also rain gear, right? So you need something to keep you dry in the parks. That's just a reality, right? And we suggest an umbrella, a rain jacket, or a poncho. So depending on the individual or the family, right? Some people prefer certain things over others. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, right? As long as it keeps you a little more dry during an especially rainy day, right? So oftentimes the rain in Walt Disney World comes and goes fairly quickly. Okay. So if you dip into a queue for an indoor attraction or a show during the downpour, it may very well have passed right by the time you come out of that. But some days that rain is going to just persist all day, right? And sometimes even a few days in a row. So for those days, if you don't come prepared, it could put a serious damper on an already damp day. Okay. So don't let that be you. Decide on whatever gear you want to bring and just have it with you in case there's rain. And like we ran into this, on our last trip, we had an Epcot day where it just rained absolutely all day.
Consistently,
so if we hadn't had our umbrellas, we're kind of like would have one gotten completely drenched or two, you kind of stuck not
in
doing
one spot,
much, right? So
we would have been stuck in like the quick service somewhere. Not
so,
moving.
Whenever we had to move from place to place, we'd pop out the umbrellas, move to the next ride, move to the next show or the next whatever. And we still were able to have a good day because we were ready for it.
Absolutely. And we used to bring ponchos, but in recent trips, we've transitioned to the umbrellas. It's taster's choice, really. We just found that folding the ponchos when they're wet is especially cumbersome. The umbrellas we have are fairly small, and we all have those wrist straps on them, so we can carry them around for a little bit while they're drying, and then we found that this works best for us. But again, some people really like the ponchos. Some people swear by rain jackets. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter as long as you are prepared.
Yeah, exactly. So another thing we would never not bring are refillable water bottles. So you guys know we're cheerleaders for refillable water bottles. And there are refill stations in each park, with more and more popping up as Disney makes updates to lands, attractions, and restaurants, right? So a lot of the newer areas and recently refurbished spaces are actually going to have these added. So it's easier than ever before to find these. And it's nice to be able to fill up a decent sized water bottle and down some water when you're feeling thirsty from walking all over the really hot parks.
The water here is sometimes cold and then sometimes a little less so. That may be a put off for some people, and we totally get that, but it's hard to beat free water in the parks when your typical water bottle is going to cost you at least $5, if not more.
Agreed. Yep.
Of course, you can always pop into any quick service location anywhere on property and ask for a cup of ice water, and they will give it to you. No questions asked. So that's always an option as well. And then that water's nice and cold at least.
Yeah, always. Yep.
We like to do a little bit of both, really. We hop into the quick service anytime we need to, but we will use our water bottles as well.
Yeah, exactly. A mix of both. Yep.
Also, sometimes they have those large water coolers at places like Casey's Corner at Magic Kingdom, Backlot Express at Hollywood Studios, Satuli Canteen at Animal Kingdom. But these are kind of a hit and miss. Sometimes they're there, sometimes not. So your mileage will vary there. I'm pretty sure I didn't see any of them our last trip. And we were at all three of those locations.
And it's interesting because it's May and it's, some of the hotter months. And we got a few days where it was really, really hot. And typically speaking, we've seen them at each one of those places multiple times. But
those ones are just nice. Like the Casey's Corner one. I think we stood there for like 5 minutes just constantly refilling because the water was so cold.
Yeah, that was September. So good. It would have been, I guess, September of last year.
So maybe that's just a summer, September thing.
Yeah,
who knows?
Maybe. Yeah, who knows?
We'll have to keep track of that.
Yeah, exactly. But, like specifically the refillable water bottles, right? At least having one or two of these with you is definitely going to serve you at some point during your park day, right? Or your trip as a whole. And we can pretty much guarantee you that. We have these collapsible water bottles that we actually bought on Amazon, and they're great, right? They fold down like super small and they don't have a weird smell or a funny aftertaste. We actually did, and this was a manufacturer's recommendation, but we put tea in it. So essentially we put hot tea, you just leave it in it for a while and then you dump it out and wash it. And then if there is any kind of smell, it's
a nice tea smell.
Exactly. And it's long since left. And now it's just like any old water bottle. And, we've gotten into the habit now that we fill a couple of them the night before and then we bring them with us first thing in the morning and then we refill them, during the day as needed and as the day goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up is park bags. It's kind of funny to think about packing like a bag, but this is another absolute must that you cannot leave home without. And this is another thing that we suggest making sure is really comfortable before you leave. You should try and walk some good distances wearing it packed with items to simulate what you would be bringing with you in the parks. This is to make sure that it doesn't rub or cut in anywhere or that would make you uncomfortable to wear all day long in that Florida heat.
Yeah, exactly. This is what you're going to take into the parks with you every day, right? And it's going to hold all your in-park essentials. So it needs to be comfortable, right? And it's kind of like shoes in that sense. You have some varying options, in terms of like size and what you should be bringing in or what you want to be bringing in. And what it really boils down to is how much space you're going to need, right? So if you have really young kids, you're likely going to be taking more, right? So, but, if your kids are a little older or you're just traveling with, teens or adults, then you can get away with something a little to a lot smaller, right? Because you can travel lighter.
Absolutely. So we suggest something that's kind of mid-size. Oliver actually carries an 8-liter cross body bag that's big enough to fit everything that we need and more, really. And then I usually take in my Loungefly backpack that can definitely fit a decent amount of stuff as well. So between these 2 bags, it's more than enough for what we take into the parks when we have the kids with us. And when it's honestly just the 2 of us, we can really get away with just Oliver's bag. So I'll sometimes just take a fanny pack that I wear as like a crossbody.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. That's what.
And honestly, my lounge fly, when it's just the 2 of us, is more of my accessory than anything.
No, exactly. It's just, yeah, exactly. And yeah, like Lucy said, right, I'm partial to the Herschel crossbody bag. Like that's the brand name. And I think the Heritage is the model number, I believe that it's called. And, I love this. I've been using this for the last 3 years or so, and it's what I take into the parks every single day. And then the next thing is chargers. Okay, so it's no secret that pretty much everyone nowadays travel with a ton of electronics. Okay, so smartphones, earbuds or headphones, tablets like iPads, Magic Band Pluses, the rechargeable batteries that we mentioned earlier, right? Just to name a few. And all of these things need to be charged. And that means the chargers that, charges these devices, they need to come with you. We strongly recommend an electronics bag. So I picked one up on Amazon a few years ago and we never leave without it now. So it stores, all of the like charging blocks, the cables, the batteries themselves. It has compartments as well, so you can kind of keep things organized. And it's small enough that I keep it in my backpack that I take with me on the plane. That way, if we need to charge anything when we're traveling, like the kids' tablets or our phones or whatever it is, then we can just, pull it out and charge whatever we need.
It's one of the best purchases we've ever made was that
agreed. And it was super cheap
electronics
too.
bag.
I think it was like $10, but yeah,
the
super
best. And then we honestly have had just throughout the years bought extra cords and like the charging blocks and just left them in there. And those are our travel ones.
Yeah, exactly.
we hardly ever take any from home now.
No.
So we also suggest power blocks that have 2 charging ports or more. We have one that charges both of the batteries simultaneously. And then we have another one that charges all 4 of our Magic Bands at the same time as well. So this is really, really handy. The Disney rooms actually have a decent amount of plugs and USB ports, but if you're charging several things, you can definitely run out quickly. So thinking ahead for this is definitely a must. We suggest laying out all of your chargers you will need to bring. And if you can plug multiple devices into one block, that's going to save you some room to charge everything that needs to be ready to go in the mornings.
Yeah, exactly. All right, switching gears now, we're going to get into our next category, which is smart clothing choices. Okay, so you should definitely be bringing in breathable and moisture wicking clothes. Okay, so it's no secret that it's hot and humid for most of the year. So having clothes that are light and breathable and can dry fast is going to be a huge plus, right? So most of these types of clothing are made from polyester and nylon, right? When you think of your typical like athleisure wear, heavier materials like your more typical cotton shirts and jeans, shorts, or khaki material shorts are definitely going to be on the heavier side and hold moisture, which, if you're wet from sweat or rain or a combination thereof, it's just not great. Okay, so long story short, light clothing that dries fast is going to go a long way during the hottest months of the year for sure. And I always have, some of these kind of athleisure type shirts. So think like Lululemon and similar styles. And I pretty much exclusively wear golf shorts, right? So what I like about them is that they actually look like regular shorts, so you can't really tell, but they dry super fast and they're also super light. Plus they look good with like a t-shirt, but also with like a polo shirt or you like a short sleeve button up as well. So those are an absolute no brainer for me. Yeah. And then, I do bring some cotton t-shirts. And this is just because a lot of the themed Disney shirts are just made that way. And then I also bring a couple of golf polo shirts just in case we want to look just a touch nicer for dinner at Disney Springs or something similar. Right. So I really bring a mix of everything when it comes to t-shirts. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also bring a mix of things as well. I do have shorts that dry really quickly, but then I also have some khaki and jean style shorts and capris as well. That's just my comfort. So for shirts, I'm kind of like Oliver. I have a mix. I have a few quick drying tank tops and t-shirts, but then I also have my fun themed cotton shirts as well. Then I'll also usually bring a couple of nice blouses for nice dinners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to layers, this is kind of counter to what we were just saying, but outside of that March to October-ish range, it can sometimes get a little chilly and sometimes just really plain cold in Florida. So depending on the time of year that you are coming down, you'll need to bring layers. So a few pairs of pants and some light sweaters or jackets for the chilly mornings/evenings. We've experienced some really cold weather in November and December where even pants and jackets were just not enough. Gloves and honestly, a hat would have been nice too. But on the flip side, then things can also get quite warm. So you'll end up having to pack a little more this time of year, given the range of temperatures you might actually end up facing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's never a bad idea to pack a couple of light sweaters, even during the hot months. if you have somebody in your family who runs cold, right? So perfect example, Sophia, our daughter, right? She gets cold in the restaurants when we sit down for dinner, when the AC is just like pumping, right? And like when it's super hot outside, it's like thank God, right? But she just always gets chilly, and then
you can see it. She just starts to shake and get uncomfortable.
Exactly.
So it's like, here's your sweater.
Yeah, exactly.
We've learned our lesson. We always have it with us.
Exactly. We've learned over time. Yeah. And then extra socks and underwear. Okay. So trust us without getting into the details. Okay. It's just nice to have like clean clothes to change into. And if you get wet feet, a fresh pair of socks to go with that second pair of shoes we were talking about can really go a long way.
Absolutely. And when it comes to swimwear, so even if you don't plan on hitting the water parks or taking advantage of that free entry to the water parks on your check-in day, the resort pools are absolutely fantastic. We always bring our swimsuits when we have the kids, obviously, because we are definitely hitting the pool multiple times with them.
Yep.
But even if it's just the two of us, we don't always swim. Actually, probably most of the time we don't. But it's nice to have the option in case we do decide to go for a dip after a really long day in the parks. Many resorts have quiet pools too. So if you're looking for that more subdued experience, that can sometimes be exactly what you need. They have those.
Yeah, exactly. And then next up is hats. Okay, so this can be like a baseball cap or a Tilly hat, whatever you prefer, right? You're going to have the Florida sun beating down on the top of your head for like a long portion of the day, if not like all day, right? So having a hat with you is never a bad idea. You don't have to wear it all day, right? But clipping it to your park bag or packing it inside your park bag just to have it on hand is definitely best practice. This is especially true for men and kids, right? And I'm drawing with broad strokes here, right? Because men just typically have much shorter hair, and that reduces what's between your skin and the sun. Okay, balding dads, I'm talking to you here. And then women or men with longer and thicker hair usually have like more protection just by virtue of the thickness, right? So it's really that simple. Just use your best judgment.
Absolutely. And lastly, it's not really clothing, more of an accessory, but let's talk sunglasses here. The parks are pretty much all concrete, and the sun hitting and reflecting that light and heat, it can sometimes be like oppressive. You can spend the entire day squinting or, just bring your sunglasses. Trust us, you're going to thank us later. This may go without saying for some of you. Lots of people won't go anywhere without sunglasses, but this should definitely be on everyone's packing list.
Yes.
It's been a game changer. We weren't always bringing our sunglasses because we thought it would be annoying on rides. Now it's not. It's worth it. Honestly, I think next time we're going to bring Sophia a pair and we're going to buy our son because he has glasses, like he has to wear glasses. We'll just try and find him some that clip on because I've noticed they get really squinty too, and it's not good for them. So I think we've learned our lesson with the kids now.
Yeah. And if you're worried about losing your sunglasses, I buy these, they're called cables.
Yes.
And essentially like it's a little rubber tip that fits onto like the arm portion of your sunglasses. And it actually like cinches down pretty tight. So you can just put them around your neck and they're not going to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, let's talk about what you could skip packing and leave at home. Okay. So again, kind of counter to what we were saying, too many shoes. So 2 pairs is the sweet spot, right? More than that, and it takes up like a lot more room in your suitcase. And, have you really broken in that many shoes? Are you really confident in your ability to walk 20 plus, 1,000 steps in all of those? We suggest, like we said earlier, 2 pairs for the parks that you can switch in and out as needed, and maybe like some sandals or flip-flops that you can wear to and from the pool. And that should be more than enough, right? Anything beyond that, in our humble opinion, okay, you're overpacking.
Yeah. And speaking of overpacking clothes, you will not need multiple outfits per day unless you're going to do a lot of coming back mid to late afternoon, getting cleaned up, and then changing for dinner. On days when you're in the park all day and have dining reservations to eat in that park, you'll really only need that one outfit for the day. And if you're wearing something just for dinner, you can likely get a couple wears, if not more, out of that outfit if you're really only wearing it for a short while. Again, your mileage is going to vary here. If you're packing a massive suitcase or if you are driving, you definitely have more flexibility here. But if you are like us and you fly and like to travel light, an extra outfit or 2 for your week-long trip should be more than enough.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't agree more. And then next up is towels. Okay, so we would not recommend packing towels like at all, right? So resorts provide plenty and will bring more on request. So really no need to bring like bath towels, right? And this also applies at the pool. So they have like little huts with plenty of towels for resort guests. So you don't need to take suitcase space for beach towels, right? You just grab a towel at the pool. They're going to have plenty.
You can grab as many as you want to. Yep. They don't say anything.
No, exactly.
So another thing is hair dryers. Each room has a hair dryer. So again, don't be bringing these with you because you're just taking up precious space. They also have irons as well if you felt like you needed to do some ironing. I will, however, always bring my hair straightener though. So obviously they won't have anything like that. But for the hair dryer, again, you're good to go. But for me, my hair straightener is a must. So
yeah. And whatever else
and
you
that
might
one's pretty
need, right?
sleek.
But
so it just like slides in.
Yep. Yeah, which, a hair straightener is typically smaller than a hair
exactly.
dryer. Yeah, exactly. And then next up is bulky camera gear. Okay, so unless you're a professional photographer, leave your bulky camera gear at home. Okay, so I'm saying this as a content creator, and I do have a mirrorless camera that captures like phenomenal photos and video, but I promise you, my iPhone 16 also takes great pictures. So nowadays, like we were talking about earlier, smartphone cameras, they actually take really, really good quality photos, and your phone is more than likely going to do just fine for what you're going to use the photos for, right? So think like sharing on social media or printing a photo for a family album or a picture frame or something like that. If you do bring your cameras, we suggest bringing the bare bones gear so that you can fit it comfortably in your park bag with your other park essentials.
Absolutely. So another thing is certain toiletries. So each room will actually have body wash, conditioner, and shampoo right in the shower. They're like those little pump ones.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're not picky about these, what they have in the rooms are actually really great. Even Sophia and I use them, and we've had no issues with that whatsoever. And we have very thick hair, and it works for us. The rooms also have lotion and hand soap at the sinks as well. So if you don't mind using the hotel offerings, this is definitely a great way to save space and a bit of money as well, because those travel size soaps and whatnot tend to be a little bit inflated in price. So don't pack it and take up space if you don't need to. Honestly, like because we are a carry-on family, we are limited in our toiletries as well. So
and
like
liquids,
the liquids. So this has really been a huge plus for us having all that stuff already there for us.
Yeah.
And if you run out, you literally call hospitality, say we're out of conditioner, you'll get it within,
absolutely.
I don't even know, like 5 minutes.
Yep. And that's happened to us, right? We've run low on shampoo or whatever.
We use a lot of it with the kids.
And we called down and they came right up.
No issues.
For sure. And on that note, let's dig a little deeper into the toiletries and personal care things that we would suggest bringing. Okay, so for toiletries that you are bringing, consider bringing travel sizes, right? I know they're a little bit more expensive, but they are convenient because the resorts actually don't have much counter space, especially if you have like 3 or 4 people in your room, right? Plus, if you're flying, like we were just saying, right, you might have no choice because, you have a limit in the amount of liquids you can bring. Okay. So if you want to save a bit of cash as well, you can actually buy these small containers at your local dollar store, and you can like pour your usual soaps and lotions and whatever else you might be bringing in those, right? Outside of that, you can find pretty much anything in containers under 100 mils. Okay, we bring sunscreen, toothpaste, hand sanitizer, hair products like
your hair gel.
Yeah, hair paste or gel or whatever you want to call it. And that's pretty much it. Contact solution.
Yeah, that's a huge one for me, contact solution, because I wear contacts. So, and then you can always find those 100 mil bottles. They're found everywhere. Like you said, a little bit pricier, but just makes traveling with that stuff easier when they're smaller.
Yeah.
So another thing is blister prevention and care. So this can be moleskin, Band-Aids, and Body Glide. We always pack moleskin and Band-Aids just in case anyone does develop rubbing or anything that can become problematic. Some people swear by Body Glide and similar products meant to reduce rubbing, especially in the hot and humid environments. It's also really good to have Band-Aids just for those small cuts or anything like that. You do end up touching a lot of high touch points. So if you've got a cut on your hand, for example, you're definitely going to want to keep that covered just to prevent infections or anything like that.
Yeah. And on that note, right, hand sanitizer and wipes. Okay. So we always have a couple of small bottles of sanitizer with us, and we use it everywhere where it's not feasible or convenient to just like plain old wash your hands. Okay. So that can be, in the parks after an attraction, like for example, Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, where you're like touching the cannon that,
everybody
1,000
else.
other people have touched in that day. Or, even on the plane, like on our travel days where, it's not necessarily easy to wash your hands. And then it's really helpful to before like, eating snacks on the go as well. As like, let's say you're at Epcot and you're stopping in a food booth, not necessarily near a washroom, you just, use a little bit of hand sanitizer. It's it's not perfect, but it's definitely better than nothing.
Absolutely. If we're like going to a sit-down restaurant, we're always wash your hands, because that's obviously the best way to prevent germs.
Yep.
But hand sanitizer is definitely a close second.
Yep, agreed.
And another thing is sunscreen and lip balm. So again, don't overlook this. Bring sunscreen, even if you don't normally wear it because you already live somewhere hot and sunny, let's say, but that sun is really unforgiving. So you'll want to be applying that regularly. And we also strongly suggest lip balm with SPF protection for the exact same reasons, because your lips can burn as well.
Yes, exactly. And then, the last thing is travel size medicine. Okay, so think like pain relievers like Tylenol or Advil, blister care like Lucy was saying for sure. Allergy meds, if you're prone to that. I sometimes do get allergies, so I'll bring a few Reactin with me just in case. Antacids. So if you're prone to acid reflux, some people aren't used to, the more like sugary and high fat foods that you're probably going to be consuming in the parks, right? So that's not a bad thing to pack, and we always have it on hand as well. And then motion sickness meds, right? So Gravol is what we bring. Our son Caleb is prone to that on rides and on the plane as well. Okay, so we always have some of that with us too. And then of course, if you have any prescription meds or inhalers or anything like that, that's obviously it needs to come, right? So that goes without saying. Yeah,
absolutely. So next, we're going to talk about what is in our park bags. So we talked about what our park bags look like, but here's what we will typically pack in our park bags when we are taking them with us into the parks. We bring those rechargeable batteries. We usually bring both, even though it's probably overkill, but it does let us both charge our phones at the same time if needed. We will also bring sunscreen, hand sanitizer, wipes, umbrellas, refillable water bottles, Gravol and Advil or Tylenol, Band-Aids, and depending on the time of year, another layer. And like we said, if we have the kids, we'll always bring a sweater for our daughter Sophia, regardless of the time of year.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, all of the things that we have packed, we are putting into good use.
Yeah, exactly. We're not bringing it for no reason. It goes into our park bag.
We have learned what we do need on the daily.
Exactly. And then another thing we actually forgot to mention is we'll also bring like different size Ziploc bags. Okay, so we use these for like, peanut butter sandwiches in the mornings that we take into the parks for the kids, right? But we also keep them for like snacks we didn't eat completely, or if a bottle of hand sanitizer or sunscreen starts leaking or something like that. Ziplocs are just awesome for like a bunch of different reasons.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap things up here with some bonus tips. So we recommend bringing a dirty laundry bag of some kind. We picked up some cloth ones that are perforated at our local dollar store. We use these to separate our dirty clothes from our clean clothes, and then we pack it back up the night before we leave. We usually live out of our suitcase, meaning we just take the clothes out that we need that day, and we don't put anything in the drawers. We will usually hang up our nicer clothes, like our nicer shirts and dresses, and also our travel clothes.
Yep.
Usually what we do is whatever we wore on the plane is being worn back on the plane,
because
it's usually a longer pants and stuff like that that we don't necessarily need at Disney.
Exactly, like a long pair of pants and usually like a sweater or like a
so those get
zip.
hung up as well, because then they're separated away.
Yep.
So that's usually what we'll do. But that's taster's choice here. Some people like to unpack everything, and that's totally cool too. Whatever works for you.
Yeah, exactly. And then we also suggest using packing cubes. So we don't actually typically use these, but some people swear by them. We can definitely see the appeal, right? So it helps organize your suitcase, or even separating segments of the trip. So it totally makes sense. So we're actually thinking of using these for our upcoming land and sea trip to differentiate between our Universal Orlando clothes and our cruise clothes.
Yeah, I think we actually will do this. I think it'll be a really good use of Disney versus Universal.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And then bags for your shoes. So your shoes are going to get dirty after walking all over property. We like to use actually the Disney store bags that we've gathered over the years to store our shoes and sandals, to separate them from the clean clothes that we are packing. They can certainly come in handy for other uses as well, but we always like to bring several of these just to have on hand.
Yeah, exactly. And then remember that you can always ship items to your resort via like Amazon Prime or Instacart if you forget anything, right? Or if you don't necessarily want to pack it, but you do want to have it with you, right? You're typically going to pay like higher prices on Disney property. So you can certainly do that to save a bit of money.
And then always leave room for souvenirs in your suitcase. Don't pack everything so tight that you can't even bring back a t-shirt. We always have to be super mindful of what we buy because we do have limited space, but inevitably we always come back with something. So we always like to save a little bit of room for that for sure, even if it's just in one of our backpacks too, that's a carry-on with us.
Exactly, for sure. So this isn't like an exhaustive list of absolutely everything that you should bring on your Disney vacation, but depending on what stage you are like in your life, for example, if you have smaller kids, you might need like a diaper bag and all the fixins, right? And everything that comes with taking babies and toddlers into the parks. But this is a really good list of what most people would benefit from having with them during their trip. Okay, we've said this before, but less is more. Okay, so people definitely have more of a tendency to overpack rather than underpack. So a good rule of thumb is to bring enough for every day, right? And then just a touch more as like a just in case, right? So no need to pack for 2 weeks when you're gone for 1 week, right? But like packing for a week plus like 1 or 2 outfits is usually best practice.
Yes, I 100% agree. It's going to look different depending on the family and your travel party. So we suggest typing everything you want to take with you on a Word document or something. Just be realistic and critical about what you'll actually need. As you're packing when your trip approaches, check things off as they get loaded into your bags, and then you should be good to go. go.
Yeah, agreed 100%. That's what we've done. We now have the same list and it pretty much
Literally
never
every
changes,
time.
right? But yeah, that's how we started. And now, we've got it down to a science and we don't spend as much time packing as we used to. But yeah, that's definitely, if you haven't traveled in a while and you're kind of nervous about, not forgetting anything, yeah, having a list and checking things off is definitely, it's a good comfort to, to kind of comfort yourself that you're not forgetting anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. With that said, thank you for joining us today to talk Disney packing tips. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And as always, if you could leave us a rating and review, it would be greatly appreciated. If you choose to do so, you can leave reviews right on Apple Podcasts. And for Spotify, you can leave a rating.
You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at letsgo.to-disney, as well as on our Facebook page, Let's Go to Disney. We share some helpful reels here as well as some fun ones. The link tree in the show notes will take you to all of our socials.
Have a great day and we'll see you real soon.